Hello and welcome to this morning's webinar. I am assuming that everybody can see my screen. I just shared the screen there. So this morning's webinar is to do with product end of life within Microsoft. There's quite a bit happening here within Microsoft. One thing I would say this morning as well is if you've got any questions, just feel free to use the chat button on the right-hand side, and I'll come to questions towards the end as well. So want to make it as interactive as possible as well. So just give a background on just Novosco and Micro Warehouse. Micro Warehouse are a distributor, and we work very closely with Novosco regarding software, and we would have a very good relationship with the team in that as well. So they just asked us to do just a webinar here on some of the products that are going end of life and that. So just kicking off here, we've got Windows 7, we've got Office 2010, we've got Windows Server 2008 and 2008 R2 and Exchange 2010. They're the four key areas. I'm really going to concentrate on Windows 7 and Office 2010 really, and just your options around that as well. Windows Server, yes, I'll talk a little bit about that as well, and Exchange. Now, the key thing on here regarding Exchange is you've got Exchange 2013 on-prem, you've got Exchange 2016, and you've got 2019, okay? Your option there really is, do I go to Office 365? Do I host my email in the cloud? Or am I looking at the on-prem? And more people are moving to Office 365, and I'll touch on that as well. The relevance on Windows Server as well, that's a conversation around, do I go to 2016 or 19, or am I looking at moving into Azure into a cloud aspect of it? So let's get started. Just some key dates on here as well. So I just put in the SQL Server 2008 because that went end of life in July the 9th of this year. So we quite a bit on that. And the SQL conversation is a bigger conversation. If you're on SQL 2008 at the moment, you're out of support, okay? You really need to look at getting either your account manager or getting somebody from Novosco in and work through solutions, because it could be a case that, right, it might be an application issue running on that version. It might be a case of a re-architecture. Could there be an option to move it into the cloud? And give an example on, we've seen, like, say, people move into the cloud, because sometimes the application that you're running on here might only need to run, like, say, for example, a certain amount of time in that. So you can automate it to start and stop on that as well, and becomes more cost effective. Now, the key date here is January the 14th, 2020, okay? So we have Windows Server, Windows Server 2008, Exchange Server 2010, and Windows 7 going end of life on that date, okay? So, Windows Server, or sorry, Windows 7 has been around for at least 10 years now, okay? So now you are looking at Windows 10, okay? So Windows 10 is going to be your last, what Microsoft are saying is your last operating system. Now, just one thing to be aware on here as well is some people will say, right, I'm on Windows 10 now, I'm up to date. How Microsoft have changed this now, they do this semi-annual release on Windows 10. So for example, you would have had 1803 and 1809. People will have heard these names, but they're actually not aware on what that means. 18 is 2018, 03 is the March change. Now, they don't always keep to the release happening in March. Sometimes it can be May, but the most recent one is 1909. Okay, now that's been rolled out in November. Some people have it depending on what cycle they're on and that. Okay, now just remember as well, for example, if you were on 1703, you actually you're not compliant anymore, so you have to keep within at least the last 4 builds within the Windows 10. So that's the change. So there's no Windows 11, Windows 12 and that as well. Now, just a couple of things I just wanted to point out as well, on October 13th, 2020, the Office 2010 client goes end of life and that as well, and we'll touch a little bit more on that a little bit later in that as well, so which is important as well, so but again, these are key dates. Now, you will have looked there and you will have seen an asterisk on some services, okay? So down at the bottom there, it says these products are eligible for extended security update program, okay? So what that means is now we might have customers on here that might have enterprise agreements. They might be pretty large, and they are aware of this here. You pay for this extra support. But coming in December, say for example now you are an Office 365 customer, okay, and you've gone to Windows 10 and that as well. This program will be available, you know, and what we're hearing at the moment is it's going to be pretty expensive. What we've heard, it's $50. So for example, you've got like say 10 users and they need to stay on Windows 7. You can pay for this extended support per year in that. What we're hearing is it's 50 for the first year, $50. Now, the price file hasn't come across to us yet in that there. So this could go to £50, you know, so, and the second year, it's going to double on that as well, like, you know. So but really what we're kind of saying here is, what is the reason that you're on Windows 7? You know, so the extended security update program is a last resort option for customers who need to run certain legacy Microsoft products past the end of support. It includes critical and or important security updates for a maximum of 3 years after the product. Now, what we've been told is this will double in price each year, and that as well. And there is other options that I'll discuss through here. You know, on right, I need to stay on Windows 7. How do I go around that as well? Just to remember as well, this is only security updates. It's not new features. Windows 7 is, you know, like there's going to be nothing new added onto this here. Now, one thing that comes up quite a bit on here is to do with compatibility on, say, for example, you know, I've got this application and, you know, it runs on Windows 7, but it won't work in Windows 10. Now, this here I got from a Microsoft presentation and from their research on this here, and I have to say, even from my own side of it as well, there's very few applications that will run in Windows 7 that won't run in Windows 10. And take this another step, it is generally a case that there is a newer version of that software. Now, the customer mightn't be willing to pay for that there. The example I have here, I was out with a customer about, it's about a year ago, and we're doing an audit and we're going through different parts and that. And we went in, it was a manufacturing company, and then we went out the back and we seen that this, well, for the want of a better word, it was a piece of software managing a large industrial saw on that, okay? And they had only one machine. Now, there's a few things about this as well, but what the company said to me was the computer itself was completely segmented off the network. It didn't need any internet access and that as well, but it was running on a Windows 7 machine in that. But the newer version of the software was going into like a large 5 figures not there, and they were saying for what they needed for, it does what it does. So what we were saying is you clone that machine, so if that goes down, make sure you have a backup on that as well. But yeah, but like what Microsoft are saying here, 99% of third-party add-ins are compatible with Office 365 as well. So that's another thing as well, like just to be aware of on that as well, you know. So now, speaking to different IT managers, it's sometimes, you know, we just haven't got around to it. We know we have to move to Windows 10. We've just, you know, we've had other projects on and that as well. Really, you know, you are now going into like you're 2 months away before this goes end of life and that thing, you know. So now just want to touch on the Office side of it. So we're touching here that Office 2010 is going end of life later next in 2020 and that, okay. Now you can see here the changes with, you know, Office 2013, Office 2016, Office 2019, okay. Now there's constant changes on this here as well, but the key thing for you, if we've got IT managers on the actual call here as well, once you have a mixed estate within your organization, it becomes a lot harder to manage in that. So for example, you've got some users on 2013, you've got some users on 2016 in that as well. Some people will say like, oh, well, this feature works on this version. Like for example, Excel is a primary one as well, like, you know, where you have some of the more advanced features available, and it's not available for other users and that as well. Your goal really should be looking at standardizing, and this is the beauty with Office 365, okay. okay? Everybody gets the latest version of Office, okay? So with that, you can be assured like that everybody has, you can hold back updates up to a year in that as well, like, you know, so, but you can install it on 5 PCs or Macs. You can actually install it on 5 iPads as well, like, you know, so, but just from a management side of it, it makes things a lot easier in that. And I'll touch on a plan, an Office 365 plan that actually works between Windows and Office towards the end of the presentation as well. Like, you know, so the other thing I'd say as well is we're all looking now at security, okay? And there is certain features that you can deploy on the later version. So we're using this thing called modern authentication, okay? If I've got Office 2013, it becomes harder. There's a manual exercise on that as well. If I've got 2016 or above and that, like I'm using Office 365, then this modern authentication from a security point of view makes things a lot easier in that as well. The other thing to remember as well, the technology now used in the later versions, it actually came in, you know, 2013, 2016, but now 2019, it is all click to run in that as well. And what that does as well is it's a similar technology to Windows. When you go to Windows 10 now, it's actually a predetermined build, okay? There's different versions of Windows. There's Windows Pro, there's Windows E3, there's Windows E5 and that. If you're licensed for the E5, it's just a case of turning on the features, and it's very similar to click to run in that as well. Like, you know, so for example, you might be on Office Standard, you need to go to Pro, and it's just a case of instead of an uninstall, reinstall, it updates in the background as well. Okay, so when we look at, and again, I'm generalizing a little bit on this here, you know, so for example, Office Perpetual, okay, one PC, static features. I install Office, it could be Office, you know, whatever it is, it could be Office 2016, I install it in that PC in that, okay. I am not, when it goes to 2019, I don't get the newer version in that as well. I can't install it on, you know, multiple PCs. The other thing with Office Perpetual, it's generally goes with a product key, okay? With Office 365, it's the signed in user, and that's the advantage. You know, it's a license per users. Now, always up to date in that as well. I would say on that, like, you can, if IT want to hold back updates and they just want to make sure everything's okay, they can hold back updates for a year in that as well. Now, this plan here, Microsoft 365 Business, brings in Office, it brings in an upgrade from Windows 7 Professional to Windows 10, but it brings in a lot more in that as well. So you've got Microsoft Teams in that as well, like, you know, so you can set up a team, you can IM people internally, externally. But say, for example, you're a construction company and you're working on, like, say, for example, a new project comes in, I need to invite external people into this team. I can upload documents, I can put in, like, say, you know, assign tasks to different people in that as well. But all my information is in that team and that as well. It's under different channels and that as well, like, you know, so and also as well, I can have private channels that just got released, so I might only want 2 or 3 people to see this information as well. Real-time collaboration, this is a big thing here regarding Office, okay? So this is one of the big advantages here. I'm working on a Word document, okay, and I have a deadline to get my information out by, like, say, 1 o'clock, okay? I need 2 or 3 people to work on it, and I kind of go, okay, John, can you work on, like, say, the finance side of it? Joanne, can you work on, like, for example, you know, the deadlines on the project and that as well? And I can see people, you know, in real time editing that as well. And you've also got version control. Now, this builds in on OneDrive and SharePoint as well, like, you know, so comprehensive security, and this is a big thing as well. Like, so for example, I can manage every device and that as well. I can kind of say, like, you know, somebody new starts in that and they try to use their mobile phone to install Outlook, I can kind of go, this is not a managed device. If you want to enroll it into our program, you can in that, but you're not going to get the information in that as well. That is built around the Microsoft 365 business in that as well. Now, mobile, PC, Mac browser, it doesn't matter what you're going to use on here. It is supported. The good thing that what Office did here was it's compatible on Macs as well, like, you know, so, and iPads and that as well. Some people would say, like, the user interface doesn't look as great in that, you know, but it's cross-platform you know, and it makes it a lot easier in that as well, like, you know. So Microsoft 365 Business comes with Windows 10 Professional. So just to be aware on this here, so everybody knows, with Windows 10, you generally have, okay, there is other versions. You've got Windows 10 Professional, you've got Windows 10 E3, and you've got Windows 10 E5, okay? So Windows 10 Professional, key things on that is it comes with BitLocker. So if I want to encrypt the device, and this is the big advantage here. If we've got anybody on the call here at the moment that they're on Windows 7, Windows 7 Pro did not have BitLocker. It had to be the Ultimate or the Enterprise side of it. So if you've got hardware that has a TPM on it, you can actually encrypt the device now with Windows 10 Professional. It's part of the build. You don't need to use a third-party tool. You can upload then the recovery key into Azure Active Directory. If you do the out-of-box experience when you build the machine, and when you sign into Azure Active Directory, it'll upload the key into that as well. Like, you know, the difference between Windows 10 E3, it comes with some other features, for example, device guard and credential guard, and that's mainly from a security side. Unauthorized applications are not allowed to run on the actual device, and that there. Also, like say, protection against pass the hash and some, you know, sophisticated attacks as well. The E5 comes with Windows Defender. It comes with a full version of Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection. Now, your Windows 10 comes with Windows Defender, but in a smaller features than that as well. Like, you know, so, but that's just the differences, the three differences, and hand on heart here, most of the time, Windows 10 Professional does what most people need in that, and that's the beauty about this here plan, the Microsoft 365 Business Plan. If you are a company here and you've got Windows 7 Professional in that, and you purchase the Microsoft 365 Business Plan, that allows you to do an upgrade to Windows 10 Professional. Now, you might see in the back end that it says Windows 10 Business, but it is the exact same. It's just more to do with a licensing thing and that. So, okay, so get more done here. And again, this is when you're talking with, like, say, for example, Office, monthly updates, fully installed, are always up-to-date versions of Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and that as well. Email calendars, use business email calendars to a rich, familiar Outlook experience and that as well. Get a 50 gig mailbox. This is with Office 365. You can actually get a 100 gig mailbox depending on your plan. You can get a 100 you can get an unlimited archive as well, like, you know, so you can send attachments up to 150 meg. I would disagree on that, because that's okay. You have that limit, but if the receiving side doesn't have that limit, then it doesn't get sent. That. So normally, what you're trying to do here is you're trying to move away from sending attachments. You're actually trying to kind of like send links to actual files and that, like, you know. So and that's an important thing. So for example, I save it on my OneDrive, create a link in that, and I send it out to people. I can put an expiry date on that as well, you know, so I can limit it only to certain people in that as well. Work across multiple devices. I must put my hat on ours here. I had a little issue with my laptop this morning, and I had to go to another machine. And because I've got Office 365, I was able to log into it, install Office, go into OneDrive, because luckily I had the presentation saved in here. So there was a bit of a panic at 9:45, but I can just say that that's how quickly I got this here set up on that, like, you know. So I would say the source device is Windows 10, so I just need another look at it in that as well, like, you know. So but again, you know, the similar experience, and where this becomes really important to note on as well is, you know, we've had different cases where people have had to work from home and that, and, you know, we had, you know, serious kind of like snow where people were off, you know, work, didn't bring the laptop home. Now you can actually log on to our browser and get access to most of your information. If you need to install Office, you can do that. But you can also put protocols in place, you know, that doesn't allow that as well from a security side as well, like, you know. So Uh, but yeah, so it's just the simplicity in that as well. Like, so just want to touch on some of the security things in that as well from a Microsoft side in that as well. Like, so and a really interesting conversation regarding somebody about antivirus as well. Like, and we'll touch on Defender just in a little bit in that as well. So Microsoft have a red team and a blue team, and basically what their job is to do is to act like hackers not there and see if there's any vulnerability within the systems and that as well. So you've got 1 billion year investment in R&D to drive security. Now that is across Office 365 and Azure as well. Like, so, but one thing I wanted to touch on here was around passwords and that as well. You really need, like, I know Navosco are really good in this area and that, but you really need to look at multi-factor authentication, okay, to access Office 365. Passwords just no longer are secure and that, so just simple as that, like, so now I know there can be things around here, like, for example, I don't want the hassle of a second form of security, but if you get a compromise in that as well, is that worth the risk in that as well? And also as well, you can do things like, for example, we've got 2 offices here. We don't need a second form of authentication in the offices because we trust this location. We're assuming that there's no hackers within inside the location. But if somebody then goes to log in from home and that as well, they will actually be asked for a second form of authentication. That can be in the form of a text message, it can be in the form of a phone call from Microsoft, or you can use the Authenticator app. You can actually get hardware tokens in that as well, like, so but just to be very clear on from a security side. So okay, so when we look at Windows 7 here, we'll look here, like, features it had, like, so BitLocker was available in the ultimate, the enterprise features and that as well, came with the TPM Windows update, so for example, for management deployment, you had remote desktop as well. But with Windows 10 Professional here and that as well, so this builds on this here from a security side as well, like, so and I just want to touch on a couple of things on here as well, like, so Windows Defender antivirus and that as well, like, so Microsoft wouldn't have had a history really in the antivirus side of it, and that it's really since Windows 10 came along. And if you go and look at any, like, say your Gartner reports on it or any of the industry, Microsoft have moved well up the chain on that side of it and that as well, like, so, and we've actually seen a lot of people actually go with this here, that is outperforming some of the better known antivirus programs and that as well. But you've also got Windows Hello for Business. So this is where you can log in through biometric, for example, like a fingerprint, or you can, like an iris scanner as well. You've also got Windows Information Protection around protecting data and that as well, like, so, but just right over here on the right-hand side and that as well, there's a lot of different features in here, like mobile device management, auto VPN. So this is like, say, for example, now, if I'm working from home, now it does depend on the version you're using that as well. But I can access, like, say, information without going through different clicks and that as well. But what I want to touch on here is something called Windows Autopilot. Okay, so how give the example on now. How do you image your machines? Do you get help from Navosco on this here, or do you have somebody inside that does this for you? So with Windows Autopilot, this is a new feature. Now, it is part of Microsoft 365 Business because it works with Intune from a mobile device management. So what you can actually do is you can order the machine, you upload a serial number into a portal, and it goes across into the Intune portal. The machine can actually be sent directly out on site. The user logs in with their Azure Active Directory credentials, and it'll build the machine there and then. So it's assuming that it's coming with a Windows 10 build and that. But what it'll do is install antivirus, install Office, and it'll do the task sequence in that as well. Like, so, but that is only a Windows 10 feature as well. So just important to note in that as well. Now, I want to touch on something on here. So we're talking here about a couple of things here. So we've kind of said like that Exchange 2010 has gone end of life as of January and that. Okay, so Exchange, I'd always look from an IT perspective, and that what's the reason that your company has information on-prem in Exchange? Why are they not moving to Office 365? Now that answer could be around security, or it just might be a case, no, we believe that our security is better if we have our emails on-prem, and that you need to see the data centers, to understand that. Now, most of the time it's to do with residency. It's like, for example, Office 365, right? If my company are based, say, for example, in Donegal, right, and I set up Office 365 and I set up Ireland, and that means the data goes into Dublin and replicates across to Amsterdam. There might be a requirement, can I say, that data should not leave the island of Ireland. If my company are based in Belfast and I put in the United Kingdom and that means the data stays in the United Kingdom. It goes into two data centers in the UK and that as well. So, but just touching on this here product, Windows Virtual Desktop and that, okay? So we touched on before early on that you can buy these advanced security packs and that extended security updates for Windows 7. You can actually run Windows 7 in Azure for 3 years with support if you're using Microsoft 365 Business. Windows Virtual Desktop delivers the only multi-session Windows 10 experience, but also Windows 7 and that as well. So this could be a case on, give an example on here, a couple of examples on here. I have a large company and only 20 people need Windows 7 and that. I can have them remote into a desktop in Azure and that, okay? And that will give them access to Windows 7 and they're fully supported in that as well. So to me, when you're looking at Windows 7, first thing I would say is try to get to Windows 10 as quick as possible, okay? That should be the angle. Then there's a speed bump. There's something in the way in that as well. This is an option on here. And the other thing as well, it can be a full desktop or it can be an application and that as well. So you can just publish the application to the desktop and that as well. So we have people that are on Windows 10, the Windows 10 is running locally, but they have 2 or 3 applications that are running in Azure that are published to the desktop and that as well. So the other thing as well on here is, now, putting in the Windows Server there, so you are looking at Windows Server 2008 going end of life, okay? So what are my options here in that, okay? So I can upgrade the OS. Now you're looking at hardware in that as well, so is it a case that I have to replace the hardware in that as well? Do I go to Windows 2019? Now that's that question now, I would say, is more open. I would probably say it about a year ago or 6 months ago, maybe, go to 2016 because maybe certain compatibility. Now, I think the 2019 one. But your other option on here as well is this opens up the cloud option. So I've got my office now in the cloud and that as well. What is stopping me moving some of these servers up into Azure and that, okay? And it opens up the conversation about a hybrid installation that as well. So for example, I might have, like, say, 3 or 4 servers. I've got a server that's 2016 on-prem. I've got a server that's 2012, but I've also got a 2008. Can I move the workloads from that 2008 into Azure? Can I set up a VPN between, like, say, Azure and on-prem and that as well? And then I can see the performance side of it as well. Is it for example, is the performance better in Azure? And then I can gradually move up other resources as well. One of the big advantages on Azure as well is that you do not have to have the machine running 24/7. So you can, like, say, for example, automate it to start and stop. And some customers are really clever on this here. So for example, I know a payroll application that is only run, like, say, every Friday and that, so, and they automate it, they give a bigger window in that as well, so, and this is a big thing from Microsoft in here, because if you're looking at virtual desktops, you're looking at RDS and that, and RDS, as good as it was your public IP address, if it was in Azure, was available to the public as well. So with this here, you're not leaving any exposure on an IP address as well. I would say the bottom part there, deploy and scale in minutes. Probably ask Peter within Novosco or Brendan or some of the team in that there. There's a little bit of work to be done, but the technical team in Novosco have the expertise in that area as well. So I hope that explains just on your options on Windows 7, okay? Because you do have different options. I pay for that extra security, or I move into Windows Virtual Desktop, or I upgrade to Windows 10 and that as well. So. Touching on here as well, so Windows Defender antivirus comes with attachment scanning, machine learning detection to catch suspicious attachments as well. So Windows Defender Smart Screen block and prevent malicious and suspicious applications and websites from loading or running in that as well. So, and that comes with Windows 10, okay? So it's Windows Defender Exploit Guard that it comes with in that as well, so. And these are some of the key benefits on Windows 10 Pro, okay? So now the Windows 10 E3 comes with Device Guard and Credential Guard. Windows 10 E5 then builds in that as well, and it's Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection in that as well. But a lot of features available in Windows 10 Pro will suffice for a lot of users in that as well. And the BitLocker one to me is really important as well. So just touching on as well, from a security side, so but just be aware. It's up to yourself. You might have your own antivirus not there, and you want to keep your own antivirus. There's no issue with that as well. So you can keep your own antivirus on the machines as well. So. Okay, so we touched on Microsoft 365 Business. Okay, so what are your goals on here and that? So Microsoft 365 Business. So for example, I'm a company here, say I'm 30 users, and I've got Windows 7 Professional. I've got a mixture of Office 2010, 2013, 2016. I have my own email spam filter and that as well, so I'm looking at. So Microsoft 365 Business comes with the 365 Business Premium, okay? So you get a 50 gig mailbox, 100 gig archive, okay? Important to note in that. You get a full version of Microsoft Intune from mobile device management, okay? And this, to me, is the security angle on here as well. This is where if somebody asks you, right, can you tell me how many devices we have out there? You can go onto Intune and it'll actually tell you how many devices are compliant in that as well. For example, I've got a mobile phone that has, say, for example, an Android version that we've kind of said we're not supporting that as well. So I can also do mobile application management as well. If somebody leaves the company and say, for example, they have two phones, they have a work phone, I'll just wipe that. But if they're their own personal phone, then I'm just going to wipe the container that has all the work information. Comes with Azure Information Protection. Big thing on here is message encryption as well. So it comes with email encryption and that as well. Advanced threat protection is your spam filter. So for example, on here, you might have your own spam filter. This comes with a built-in Microsoft one as well. Exchange Online Archiving, that gives you that 100 gig archive in that as well. But the key thing from just the discussion today here is you get the Windows 7 upgrade to Windows 10 Business and that as well. Comes with conditional access, and this is a really important part on it here is, so for example on here, we touched on multi-factor authentication. I go set up multi-factor authentication, but I want to whitelist IP addresses. So for example, I come into the office and I log into office.com. I don't want a second form of authentication. But building on that as well is I can then block, say, applications and that. So I can have a cloud application and I can kind of say, right, we've got, let's give an example, Sage cloud application. I only want the accounts team to be able to access that as well. Also, for example, you might have things like we've had people try to do work-life balance where they've kind of said people can only access Outlook between 8 and 8 p.m. and that there. that one probably didn't work as well, and that as well. But with conditional access policies, you can build on this here regarding legacy legacy applications as well. Like, so for example, do not allow anybody to connect through IMAP or through POP as well. So just some of the features within Microsoft 365 Business. So you can see here it went general availability in October 2017, and you can see here all the different features. But just look down at the bottom there, Windows Virtual Desktop. So this is where I can get a Windows 7 running in Azure and that, like, you know, so, or Windows 10 as well, like, you know, so that's an important part just to reiterate as well, like, you know, so, and just going through some of the features within Microsoft 365 Business. So it's Business Premium, comes with a Windows 10 Business Upgrade license, comes with a full version of Intune. Azure Information Protection Plan 1 comes with litigation hold and data loss prevention. 100 gig archive, comes with the spam filter, conditional access policies, and license to run in a virtual desktop on that. Okay. We're just coming towards the end of the presentation and that as well, you know, so I just wanted just to touch on just going back here to one of the earlier slides on here, and it's just to reiterate the slides on the actual dates and that. So just going back onto here and that. So January the 14th, you know, I do wish Microsoft would have pushed that date out a little bit, you know, because nothing really happens in December. and January, people are coming back in that as well. But the key message on today here really is, why are you running Windows 7? What is the justification for running Windows 7 at the moment? Like, this has been really well publicized in that as well. Like, you know, so the Exchange Server 2010, look, I don't think that's as a big, a lot of people now have moved to Office 365, or if they're on-prem, they're on 2016. You know, so we don't see as much on that. The Windows Server conversation, yes, you still see some of that, and that is a big you know, security play in that as well. Like, you know, so now the Office client, I just think if we've IT managers on here, your life is made a lot easier if everybody's on the same version of Office and that as well. Okay, Chris, that is the end of my side. Is there any Q&A there on the panel?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, there's a question module in the corner of the GoToWebinar toolbar. Alternatively, you can email your questions in afterwards and we'll follow up with Michael. Everyone should have received an email from me just a few minutes before this started. We'll give it a minute there and see if anything comes up from queries.
Yeah. Perfect. And that, like, so, but I think it's just, you know, like, if you do have say some questions and that, you know, follow up, you know, even with your account manager in Novosco and that as well, like, you know, so, because sometimes it can be a case on, you know, I'm nearly 100% sure we're all on Windows 10. Let's do an audit and that, just to make sure in that as well, like, you know, so, but I think it's just important because sometimes people are very busy, you know, in different parts and that, like, you know, so, and a Windows 7 to Windows 10, you know, needs to be mapped out, like a migration that as well, because you have different options on here as well, like, you know, so I've worked on a couple of deployments and that as well, where you do end up, you know, seeing certain applications and that as well. So generally what you want to do is you want to pilot some users on Windows 10 and just make sure that the applications run. But I do think that application side, that, you know, the application only runs on Windows 7, it won't run on Windows 10. Have you tested it in that? And then is there a later version of that software? Okay, doesn't look to be any questions here. Chris, I'm assuming here that I explained this very well.
Yeah, you did. It makes perfect sense. There's certainly a lot of incidences in the past where companies have only found out that they weren't running the most up-to-date applications after it was too late to discover. I think in some of the major security breaches in the last number of years that
Look,
Certainly made the press.
yeah, look, and again, I probably stayed away. I could have put in more slides about, like, say, certain breaches on how it came in and that as well, like, so, but today is really about an information side on, what's going to end of life within Microsoft and that, like, so, and I think the other thing as well, just to be aware as well, is even though if you're on Windows 10, which you should be receiving the updates in a way, like, so, but are you on 1903? Are you on 1909 and that as well? So, 1903 is 2019 and the March release and that as well. And that's the direction that, like, I've had a couple of people ask me, are they going to go Windows 11? At the moment, it's this release now. It's a semi-annual release on the Windows operating system and that as well, like, so.
Well, this has been really useful. Thanks, Michael.
Okay, look, thanks for everybody for attending and that as well. And again, as I said, like, if there's any questions, I'm happy enough to follow up on it. And Novosco will have pricing on this extended security update program. It's just, if you're an enterprise customer, it's a different conversation. But if you're going, if you're going through, like, say, CSP, which is cloud solution provider, which most people are, and that we will have that information in December and that as well. But we've just been told that this is going to double in price each year, and I do think, unless you have a real business critical application and that, it is time to move to Windows 10. Okay, look, thanks everyone, thanks Chris, and I shall talk to you again. Thank you.